Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
First it was Brexit, then Donald Trump. Is France now about to make it a hat trick of shocks to the political establishment? The prospect terrifies the governing elite in Paris. I've just come back from there. They're no less scared in Brussels and Berlin, given what it could mean for the whole EU project. Never mind the huge potential impact on our own Brexit negotiations. 11 candidates are contesting the first round of the presidential election this weekend. Only the top two will go forward to the runoff on May the 7th. For the first time since General de Gaulle created the Fifth Republic in 1958, it's perfectly possible that no candidate from the ruling parties of the centre-left or the centre-right will even make it to the second round. The election has been dominated by the hard right in the shape of the National Front's Marine Le Pen, the centre-left's Emmanuel Macron, who's never been elected to anything and only started his own party a few months ago, and the far left in the form of Jean-Luc Mélenchon, a former Trotskyite who surged in the final weeks of the campaign. The only candidate left from the traditional governing parties is the centre-right's François Fillon, and he's been struggling to stay in the race ever since it was revealed that his Welsh wife was being paid at generous public expense for a job that might not have existed. I've just come across this magazine cover and it kind of sums up the mood of the French people. It's got the 5 main candidates for president here, but it calls them the biggest liar, the biggest cheat, the biggest traitor, the most paranoid, the biggest demagogue. And he says they're the winners of a rotten campaign. I don't think they're happy. The 4 leading candidates, Le Pen, Mélenchon, Macron and Fillon, are all in with a chance of making it to the second round. Only a couple of points separates them in the polls. It's well within the margin of error. Frankly, nobody has a clue what's going to happen.
Exactly. Of the 4, there's a feeling that 2 of them may be president on May 7th. Emmanuel Macron and François Fillon. But the 2 of them may not find themselves in the second round.
So we don't know.
So we don't know.
Somebody said to me that the man or woman on the Paris metro has as much a chance of knowing who's going to win as the greatest experts on French politics.
Probably a better chance, because the more expert you are, the more you may be wrong.
The country's largely stagnated for over a decade. 1 in 10 are unemployed, 1 in 4 if you're unlucky enough to be young in France, and like Britain in the 70s, there's the pervasive stench of relentless economic decline.
There are 3 key words that come to mind. Anger. Anger at the elite, and in particular the political elite. Fear of the future and of the other, and an element of nostalgia for the past. These 3 words were decisive in the Brexit referendum. They are decisive in the French election.
Identity and security have been as important in this election as the economy. France is a proud nation. It worries about its future in Europe and in the world. It seems bereft of ideas about how to deal with its largely Muslim migrant population, huge chunks of which are increasingly divorced from mainstream French life. It is quite simply exhausted by the never-ending Islamist terrorist attacks, the latest only days before voting in the iconic heart of this most iconic of beautiful cities. If Fillon or Macron emerge victorious, then there will be continuity of sorts, though Fillon will struggle to implement his Thatcherite agenda, and Macron will not be able to count on the support of the French Parliament, the National Assembly, for his reforms. But if it's Le Pen or Mélenchon, then all bets are off. Both are hardline French nationalists, anti the euro, anti the European Union, anti-fiscal discipline, anti-the market, anti-German. Mélenchon viscerally so. Either in the Élysée Palace would represent an existential threat for the European Union. Brexit would simply become a sideshow. The negotiations could just peter out, as Brussels and Berlin had bigger fish to fry. And we're joined now from Paris by the journalist Anne-Elisabeth Moutet. Anne-Elisabeth, welcome to the programme. Of course, overshadowing the voting today was that yet another appalling terrorist attack in Paris on Thursday night. Do we have any indications of how that is playing into the election?
That initially people thought this has been almost foiled in that the police were there as a rampart. One policeman was killed, but the terrorists did not spray the crowd with bullets, and it was seen as not having much of an effect on the election. But this has changed, because we now know the policeman Xavier Jugelet, who was killed, young man about to be promoted. He was at the Bataclan the night that there was the terror attack. He was a fighter for LGBT rights within the police. The fact that he was promoted meant that he was happy within his job. And he's got this fresh face, and suddenly he's one of us. And I think it took perhaps 24 to 48 hours to the French to process this, but now they're angry, and this may actually change the game, at least at the margins.
To whose advantage could it change the game?
I would say the two who might benefit from this are Marine Le Pen, because she's been absolutely anti-immigration, anti-anything, anti-Islam, and made no bones about it. And she immediately made a rather strange announcement in which she said that if she'd been president, none of the terror attacks that happened in France would have attacked. But François Fillon has written a book 2 years ago which is called Combating Islamic Terrorism. He's been very forward about this, and he has an organized plan in his manifesto. Unlike Emmanuel Macron, who stumbled when he was asked the very evening when this was happening what he thought, and he said, I can't dream up an anti-terror program overnight. And the question, of course, that arose was, this is not the sort of thing that has just happened overnight. It's been, unfortunately, the fate of France for many years.
Let me just ask you this finally. Whatever the outcome on May the 7th in the second round, whoever wins, would it be fair to say that French politics will never be the same again?
Yes, absolutely. It's a very strange thing. People have now become really excited about this. You cannot go anywhere without people discussing heatedly this election. The anger that was described is very accurate, very true. There was this feeling, as for the Brexit voters, as for the Trump voters, that vast parts of the people were being talked down to by people who despised them. And so this has to change. And if it doesn't change, we cannot predict what the future will be.
And Elizabeth Moutet will know the results, or at least the exit poll, at 8 o'clock London time tonight. See who goes forward to the next round. I thank you for joining us there from the glorious heart of your city.